How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Llegaron los nuevos McCrispy Strips, listos para aventurarse en la mezcla de mayo ketchup, la barbecue que quedó en el fondo de la cajita, hot fudge sundae y en la nueva creamy chili McCrispy Strip dip. Los nuevos McCrispy Strips, ahora en McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
Achtung Millwall podcast supports the Lions Food Hub, dear listeners, and you can do too by getting yourself an Achtung Millwall t-shirt from noonelikes.co.uk, also known as Nolu Clothing. They've got a wonderful Achtung Millwall t-shirt on there for £15. At least £8 of each sale goes to support the Lions Food Hub, which does fantastic work for families in and around the South East 16 area. Show your allegiances on the podcast front, dear listeners, by getting yourself an Achtung Millwall t-shirt, and by doing that, you'll support the wonderful, the brilliant Lions Food Hub. Noonelikes.co.uk, Achtung Millwall t-shirt, £15. Check it out.
You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Achtung Millwall, a middle of the summertime edition. I was actually going to open with a few bars of the, is it Gershwin, Summertime, and the living is easy, but it's actually pouring down with rain as I record these words. The reason for the show is that we had a very nice collective conversation with Kevin Nugent, our under-21 manager, via the auspices of the club yesterday. It was a collective Zoom call with Micky from that Millwall podcast and Joe Zampa from Chat with Chaps. Really nice conversation. I'm going to include that audio on the end of this little, opening sequence, shall we say. Nice conversation. Interesting bloke, very nice bloke, actually, Kevin Nugent. And I found it quite a useful conversation. So that's going to come up at the end of today's edition, dear listeners. But as you know, I like to give you value for money. We don't do a video edition on the show, and I don't think we will do. I keep toying with the idea of doing some video content, and I go round in circles with it, listeners. So I'm going to stick to the audio for the moment anyway. So I thought we'd have a quick run through some of the Millwall news of the summertime so far. And just as an opening piece, which is actually literally, I was just reading as I switched on the recorder for this opening sequence, there's a really interesting article in The Athletic today, the 1 year anniversary of the passing of, or passing, whatever word you want to choose, of Matija Sarkic. A year, amazing, isn't it? It's an interesting piece, and it's an article, an interview with Matija's family, Bojan Sarkic, who lives in Brussels. To put it into a nutshell, it's a very long piece, and it's way too long for me to summarise, in any kind of nutshell. But there's some interesting elements of the article. The underpin theme of it is that the family have been in financial difficulties, and I think there's an underlying expectation on the family's part of more financial support than the contractual aspects have defined from the Millwall perspective. I think that's a fair summary of I'm not going to get into the rights and wrongs of it, because I'm not a legal minded person anyway, and secondly, in my own experience of life, there's always two sides to every story, and you can take your pick as to who's right and who's wrong. But there's some interesting elements in the article. As I say, very long article. It's on the Athletic, New York Times Athletic website, but there's a interesting piece. I don't know how you want to, what other word you might choose for it, but they're talking about the heart monitoring obligations of clubs. Apparently, any club playing under a UEFA auspiced competition, which isn't one of the FA competitions, which is where we are, the Millwall, are required to do a cardiology test, a standard 12-lead ECG, a cardiology test that captures the heart's electric activity, and that should be performed annually under UEFA regs, and an echo test performed every 2 years. The piece makes clear, and the club are playing within different rules to those. We are not playing in a UEFA competition, we're playing by FA rules, which apparently is less onerous. I think every 2 years. The club do say in the piece, and quoted as saying they told the Sarkic family they offered Marty a heart check last April 2024, which he didn't take up, and they've repeated this to the Athletic when they were approached separately. There's no suggestion, the article says, that Mill are at fault in any way, as the timing of the heart check they offered fell within the FA's defined 2-year period, but the family's sense of disappointment and regret is palpable, as they put it here. The Mill spokesperson is quoted as saying the club takes all such regulations seriously and will always adhere to our professional and legal obligations. In Martia's case, the club went beyond the FA's mandatory requirements and offered voluntary heart screenings to Martia. This offer sadly was not taken up at the time. So he would have had to have had it done within a 2-year period, but he chose not to on that occasion, I think, is the summary there. The family have experienced some financial issues out there in Brussels, and they were fearful at one point that the family home in the Brussels suburbs might be at stake. For, I suppose, young blokes, this is a good lesson. Young blokes. The article says the family's financial suffering has been compounded by Martia not having life insurance, and unbeknown to the family, other protection premiums were out of date. When you're 20-something, listeners, this is a hard truth. You can't see beyond the end of your nose. I'm going to come up with something a bit more fruity there, but let's go with your nose rather than any other appendage of the body. So the idea of life insurance and premiums and pensions is so far off into a distant future at that age that I imagine Martia didn't think about it. Why would you? He's a fit young professional. And consequently, that aspect of his life was short, so to speak. Family has had problems with the probate out there in Belgium. The club have paid up his contractual obligations. The article says he had 2 years remaining on his Millwall contract when he passed away. The club paid his June 2024 wages, as well as outstanding bonuses were owed, but then payments have stopped, and the club are saying that they have fulfilled their contractual obligations with no further obligations to pay as per the deal signed. There we are. It's a tough business. I'm surprised. One of the things that did surprise me is the contract doesn't, and this is written from the family's side, listeners, so do keep that constantly in your mind. It's not a club focused piece, it's a family focused piece. They say that the contract did make no arrangements for death in service, which is unusual. I mean, every contract I've ever dealt with professionally as a union rep, it was an element that was defined, it laid out. Now, you could argue, that, wouldn't it be nice to have more than that? And there's an emotional kind of conversation you can have. But generally speaking, these things come down to what's written hard and fast in a contract, an employment contract. But anyway, if that's true, I don't know, surprising, but there we are. So there we are. That's and I'm going to leave that there because it's emotive. The family are still clearly in grief. It describes them having the basement of their house as a shrine almost to Martia. And everyone has to deal with these things in their own way. And I'm not going to sit and say any more than that, dear listeners. But yeah, 1 year ago, loss of Martia Sarkic, difficult time for the club, and on the back end of obviously losing John Barrelson the year before. We have had some rocky periods, haven't we, in these past couple of years, dear listeners. But to take the mood up a little bit, yesterday was notable for the announcement of an extended contract, a new contract. I don't know what it is for Alex Neil. He's signed for a man that's joined us in December the 30th. So, January, Feb till now, what's it? It's June, so it's not barely 6 months. Done very, very well for us as a manager, hasn't he, Alex Neil? To take us so close, as I said, online yesterday in various places, to take us from staring over our shoulders at the relegation end of the table to take us so close on the final day to playoff football was a huge achievement. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that, we were carrying a big injury list. So the quality of the football we were playing, listeners, or aiming for, ambition, shall we put it that way, was terrific. And that, I think, is the thing more than any other aspect of Alex Neil's tenure with us that has really given me a lot of positivity for next season. Now, positivity can be your downfall then, can't it? But I think everyone is collectively, when you read across the support online, it's an unusual situation, but most people are really looking forward to the new season, and he's a major, major part of that. So he's announced a deal with the strange term of for the foreseeable future. I don't. How do you define what that is? Generally speaking, it's a 3-year, 2-year, 4-year, 5-year defined deal. But the way the club have put it is it's for the foreseeable future, and I don't know what that means. I mean, the foreseeable future can be elastic period of time. I don't know. He's quoted here. It's really nice words. And one thing that's really struck me with Alex Neil, listeners, is how warm he seems to be feeling towards our club. He's a manager and a player that's been around the houses. He's worked at various places, normally successfully, but he's been here, there, and everywhere. But he does seem to have a genuine affection for what he's found at the club. When I went to the end of season dinner, which was at the Rotherhithe Hilton Hotel on the Riverside. Really nice place, nice venue. But one of the things that struck me, and it was quoted previously, was that Alex Neil, obviously coming from the west coast of Scotland, small town west coast of Scotland, these are close, tight-knit football towns and places, but he feels a sense of home in what he's found at Millwall, because in a similar way, we're a tight-knit, not hostile to outsiders generally, aren't we? This is in the nature of the club. We are not Crystal Palace. We are not Charlton Athletic. It's a much more siege mentality at Millwall, in Bermondsey, historically so. And I think he's found a touch of home. The statement he's put out is really nicely worded. I'm going to read this directly. There's not that much of it. This says, "I'm delighted and incredibly proud to sign this new contract. Since my first day, the commitment and togetherness I've seen from everyone at the club, players, staff and fans, has been really special. That unity has helped us build strong foundations for the seasons ahead, and to be part of that journey is incredibly exciting." He says, "This club is special. It's only when you truly experience the work that goes on behind the scenes, speak with the fans and work alongside the players and staff day in and day out that you realise how unique it really is." He wants to thank everybody, Chairman Barros, James Barros and Steve Gallen, for their continued support. Nicely put by Alex Neil there. So, yeah, an elastic for the foreseeable future presence at the club. I think the general tone of the club's response is that they really like the direction he's taking us. I like the direction he's taking us. Do you like it, listener? I do. I bet you do too. What's not to like? So yeah, that was the news that was announced yesterday. As I say, coming up later, we're going to speak to Kevin Nugent on similar themes. Actually, that's player development from the under-21s. And the various aspects as it occurred to the three of us interviewing him yesterday. I do want to say a big thank you to Max McClellan for setting up this regular initiative. It really works well. It's evolved into something now where I think the three of us, are we rival podcasts? We're not really rival podcasts. We each do different stuff, and I think we're generally at Millwall, we have a tendency to look at each other when actually we should all be pulling in the same direction. There's not that many of us, dear listeners. So certainly it's nice to be able to sit down with the boys and do, we're each going to do our own thing. Each got our own angles, and long may that continue. But it's a really nice initiative by by Max there. So a big thank you to Max whilst I think of it. I'm ad-libbing this opening sequence, listeners. So if I wander off and go around in circles, you've got to forgive me. Other news. That'll be coming up later, that interview. Other news. Demise of the SLP. South London Press is dead, is no more. This is a crushing shame. Rich Corley has been the go-to journalist for us all online. There's a real hunger and need for good quality, reliable journalism. The world of X and Twitter produces a whole load of self-serving, ego-driven, kids in their back bedrooms knocking stuff out online. And Rich was an oasis of good sense and reliable news and information, working for the South London Press, which is a historic newspaper. I mean, it started in the 1860s, I think I read. And it's served South London ever since. But I suppose platforms like this, Twitter, the online world generally, you see it when you follow any local news outlet online now. Where I live, I've got the Newham Recorder, and it's full of crap, listeners, advertising and links to take you to places you don't want to go to when you open up a story that's supposedly of some local interest to you. And this goes everywhere. This has been the death of Fleet Street, the death of newsprint. It's not going to change because the world doesn't go backwards. But the South London Press has fallen victim to these changes, and it was inevitable and sad. I'm working now for. I've got to make some more effort to do these shows. I used to love the South London Press's webpage for Millwall News, because it would give you a kind of a laid out sequence of stories relevant to the match that you're about to watch, or the news show you're trying to put together. And you could use it as an agenda. I'm going to go to the news at Den now, so you'll hear me quoting news at Den more often than the South London Press. I think there's a real, and this is not easy to do, so I'm going to say it because it's not easy, and it won't be me doing it either. But there's a real hunger for what Rich has done from a Millwall perspective. I do see that he's still going to be posting on Millwall matters. He must have a contact list that's extensive, and that's a key point, reliable contacts for any aspiring young journalist out there. He's going to be blogging, or substacking is the thing now, isn't it? Blogging, as I would have called it, substacking, which is a paid-for content, because that's the essence of the demise of the print industry. People would want content for nothing rather than paying for it, where once you'd have had to have bought the newspaper. Now there's a strange idea that you get it all for nothing. But yeah, he's going to be posting on some Millwall matters, AFC Wimbledon, Bromley, Palace, Charlton, but focused on Charlton. He seems to have a stronger connection. His Substack would include articles and interviews with the Charlton side of things. There's got to be a young journalist out there that aspires to be a reliable voice, that is trying to learn his business, or her business. Let's not forget the other 50% of the human population. And is reliable, because that's there's a hunger for it, there's a demand for it. So anyone that wants to be the new Rich Corley, he's still in the business, he's still in the game, but there's got to be a place for a Millwall version of what he's doing with Charlton there, in my humble opinion. That's just my take. I will miss the South London Press though. I like their format, I like their style, and I like their website, which I didn't used to pay for. In fact, Rich's Twitter feed is well worth following still. Listeners, there's a juicy little piece here on his X feed. I keep calling it Twitter. He's got that Patrick Ryan is set to leave a role at CPFC as their head scout to take on the main recruitment role at Millwall. Patrick Ryan, I don't know the name, but apparently used to work with Director of Football Steve Gallen at Charlton, and I suppose you'd have to say that, much as it pains me to say it, the progress that Crystal Palace are making with their infrastructure is what we're trying to replicate, and that sounds like a bit of a coup, Patrick Ryan, and that's on Rich S. Corley on X, on Twitter. So as much as he's focusing on the Charlton content, listeners, I say he's still well worth a follow from the Millwall and other clubs. He's got stuff here on AFC Wimbledon and talking about Wolves monitoring Mihailo Ivanovic from the Millwall perspective, which we will get interest from other clubs for. He's got 12 goals in the Championship. That's going to generate interest. Same with Jaffet. So yeah, Richard Corley, do keep tabs on his work on Twitter, listeners. And I hope Rich does a similar thing with Millwall that he's doing with Charlton on Substack. Now, if you're listening, Rich, that's a big hint, mate. Moving on.
By the time I hit my 50s, I'd learned a few things, like how family is precious. Work can always wait. And 99% of people over 50 already have the virus that causes shingles. Not everyone at risk will develop it, but I did. The painful, blistering rash disrupted my life for weeks. Don't learn about your shingles risk the hard way. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
We're shipping Father's Day gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes, my gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send a set of golf clubs.
Oh, hole-in-one.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit theupsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
Oh, such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT!
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Achtung, Millwall.
Other Millwall news, there's this odd bod Saudi Arabian storyline, isn't there? Turkey Alak Shahi, apparently a representative on behalf of a Saudi-backed fund is looking to buy into a championship club, quotes. Does that include us? There's a lot of storylines flying around, a lot of people talking about it on stations like TalkSport. I haven't got a clue. I don't know. Some people have mentioned to me the kind of human rights aspect, and I find this a very strange thing to get hung up on. The modern world is built around governments of all stripes from every country doing stuff that they would prefer not to be widely publicised. And I include ours. I include the Americans. I include everyone. They're all at it, as my old nan would have said. They're all the same, Nick. And sadly, it's true. I read the news. I probably see the same stuff that you do, dear listeners. And I wish people didn't shoot each other quite as much as they seem to have a predilection for. Whether that should intrude on the world of sport, we know that Saudi Arabia is investing in sports generally. They've got huge amounts of money to invest, and they see sport as a method of cleaning their image. Sports washing is the term, isn't it? It's become a cliche, that term, sports washing. It's a method of reaching out beyond the place that you come from and where your wealth is based, and making yourself part and parcel of people's lives. So hence you've got channels I never know how to say this. Is DAZN, the DAZN, is it? The boxing channel where they invest a lot of money in promoting boxing, golf, the Live Tour. Football is also, we've got the likes of Manchester City, Newcastle, and Paris Saint-Germain just won the European Cup just the other day, all receiving money, rightly or wrongly. And we can all, go round the circles arguing the morality of it. In the end, morality, as it was once put to me in a trade union meeting, you can't put goodwill or morality in the bank, Nick, and you can't pay for your Sainsbury's shopping with it. And that's very, very true. So I don't know the strength of it. It's going to be a very strange event if we are bought out or overtaken by the Saudi Arabians. I have relished the influence and impact, and I hope it continues, of the Berylson family since the arrival of John back in the mid-2000s, 2006 was it? And they've been hugely beneficial for us. What shape or form this investment, if it comes to pass, will take, I have not got a clue. I don't offer any insight onto that. My worry and concern is that we lose a sense of who we are and what we are. But we are a small minnow in a sea of football current, in the ocean sense, that's going in one direction, and it's very hard to swim against that. I think no matter what, as the generation, my generation and older, pass along the conveyor belt of life, then gradually who we are and what we are, that sense becomes something from the past, and you've got to adapt to the modern world, whether you like it or not. So there we are. We'll see. Other news: it's emerged that Jeff Tanganga has a 1.2 million release clause if a Premier League club comes a calling, and Wolves seem to be the club of choice on amongst the internet experts out there that might welcome calling. So we stand a chance of losing Jeff for very low money, which has caused outrage and gnashing and wailing of teeth around the Millwall scene. Myself, I'd had a sense that he had a very low release clause. You hear stuff. I don't have any insight into it, but people talk, and those that have some in the know quality said that one of the reasons he signed for us was he liked playing under Neil Harris initially, and then secondly, he wanted to showcase himself with a view to getting back to the level that he feels he can play at, which is Premier League football. And he's done magnificently for us, hasn't he? Leader, player of the season last year, rightly so. Whether this news emerging and the interest of Wolves means it will move on, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it should surprise you, dear listener. We've had a good run out of Jeff Tanganga, a defender, one of the best defenders I think I've seen in that position. What I will say, and I'm not knocking him because he's player of the season, rightly so, I don't think he's not perfect. If he gets a move to the Premier League, I will say good luck to him. But he does switch off on occasions. He can be a little sloppy in passing on occasions, but mostly he isn't. Mostly he's brilliant for us. So if he goes, we have a ready-made replacement in Tristan Crimea. So how much money we'll get out of it, I don't know. Not much by the sounds of it. 1.2 mil is the figure that's doing the rounds online. Move along. What else can I tell you about whilst you've got me? Lions Trust Fans Advisory Board. The Lions Trust. I'm apologising. Really, we ran out a little bit of energy. Each of us that's Phil Clark, myself, and Steve Jones, our treasurer, had a rush of energy. We've got it to the point where we've got a membership, and then I think each of us have had personal stuff to contend with, and it's just run into a little bit of a lull at the moment. I apologise for that. You may have seen online that the football legislation is going to go through, which will create or require clubs to create things called fan advisory boards, which is like a liaison to represent the interests of fans to clubs and vice versa. The Lions Trust will be part of that process at Millwall. It's exactly the kind of thing it should be involved in. It's a democratic, and I'm going to cough here. I haven't been voted in by anybody yet, and I'm well aware of that, and I want to address that very, very soon. But it is a democratic organisation, and if there was a movement to sling me out at the moment, then I would certainly go. But anyway, more news on this, listeners. I keep promising more news every time. I'm well aware of it. I have to apologise to you. Other stuff has just overtaken myself. I know Phil and I know Steve too. But we will be part of this fan advisory board. It will be a democratic method of representing the views of fans, which is manyfold, and those that represent you should represent the views that they get back through constant communication with fans. I think that's it in a nutshell. But yeah, the legislation's going through. I think we've probably all taken a slight step backwards, waiting for that and see how it shapes up. Plus other stuff, personal stuff, as I've said. Finally, before I close this little opening piece and we move on to the interview with Kevin Nugent, I just wanted to let you know I went to the funeral of Don Bone. Older listeners might remember Don as being a regular member of our panel. We stood round table Of course, before COVID era, we used to actually physically meet around various locations. The Mizzen Cafe used to allow us to use their premises. They had a cafe in Hither Green. I don't know if that's still there. And then on one occasion we met down at Bromley before they became a Football League club. We managed to borrow one of their classrooms to record a show. But Don was part, along with Barry Bongo, Derek King and myself and Peter Hurd. Don was a valued member of our panel and a man full of funny stories. He only when the recording was switched off, which I always used to say to him, Don, we should get the funniest stories on the record, but he wouldn't have it. He would always say, you got to switch that off now. A real character, a man of the 1970s, a good writer. He used to send in articles for the CBL and Nolu magazine as well. We used to have him in the middle of CBL, Word from the Don. And he's a good writer. And he's got a couple of books online under the name of Oliver Stanley, apparently a couple of stories he's written, South London-based stories. So any profits that being made from Don's books will be donated by the Bone family to charity. I had the privilege of attending his funeral on Monday. It was down near Folkestone, drove down for that. Saw a few faces. I'm going to shout out Nez. I'm going to shout out to Crunchy. I'm going to shout out to Dartford. All of these names will mean nothing to those that weren't members of the House of Fun in the past. Big shout out to the Bone family generally, though. It was a really personal and powerful delivered non-religious ceremony, which I think was in keeping with what Don would have wanted. It was spot on, chaps. Nick and his brother Colin both delivered powerful personal speeches about Don and the impact he had on his family, and it was really moving. I'm glad I went. It was a privilege to be there, and we're going to actually bring back, like Oasis. The Beatles never got back together again. Oasis apparently are getting back together again. I'm going to revive the remaining names on the round table panel. We're going to meet up at the end of June. To do a revamp of the round table conversation. So expect that later on in the summertime, dear listeners. But for now, I'm just going to say, rest in peace, Don. You will be sadly missed, mate. And that was the very much the feeling that came out of the funeral on Monday. There we are, dear listeners. I think I've probably waffled on quite a lot as an opening sequence for the interview that I'm hanging this episode on. So after the break, we're going to come back with a three-way conversation with Joe Zampa from That Millwall from Chat with Chaps, Micky from That Millwall podcast, and yours truly, speaking with under-21 manager Kevin Nugent. Stay tuned, dear listeners.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of can't-miss deals just in time for summer.
The denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses. I always find something amazing.
Plus, buy it online and pick it up in-store the same day for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
It's time to rewrite the vacation rules. With Royal Caribbean, your family can look forward to just about anything. Break the thrill barrier, roaring down the tallest water slide in North America. Jump into breathtaking jungles and jaw-dropping coves. Vibe off the charts on our private island Perfect Day at Coco Cay. And end the day knowing things are just getting started. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Achtung, Millwall.
Obviously, with the change of how recruitment and obviously the relationship now between Steve Gallen and Alex Neil within the youth setup now, and we've now funded back into Claremont. to produce more youngsters. Do you think that this is an exciting time for you and the youth setup at Millwall going forward, a bit like what we were in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been here 7 years now, so we've evolved, and it's been a lot of changes along the way as well. But with that new push to try and push to get the young lads in and recruiting them and buying them and how we're going about it, I think it's definitely an exciting time, and we've got to make sure that we produce those players and get them in.
Excellent. Nick?
Come off mute. Hello, Kevin. Nice to meet you.
You all right?
I'm Nick. Yeah.
Hi, Nick. You all right?
I'm good, mate. Something's always intrigued me with, is it under 21s or under 23s?
Under 21s. It was under 23s a couple of seasons ago, but it's now under 21s. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it always fascinates me as to the amount of. Do you coordinate tactics? I mean, when your team takes the field, are you trying to imitate the style and the way that the first team are playing, or is it? Do you have some kind of discretion over how you take the field versus the first team?
There's been periods in the time that I've been here where it's been led by a little bit. Right, we wanted to play a back three, but we've kind of gone away from that a little bit now because obviously managerial changes and it's club appointments as well. So we've gone away from that a little bit. So what we're trying to do now is really just develop good players.
Right.
But we like to change our own system as well. So we give them some challenges in terms of, sometimes it is on the personnel we're going to pick. If we have players that are coming down from the first team, and then maybe we've got 3 players from the first team, and man said, you know what, I want you to play in a 4 in this one. That absolutely no problem at all.
Right.
But we do challenge the players we will change to a back 3, and we might do it within a game. So again, we want to get the results, and winning is vitally important, but challenging the players, making them adaptable. So if different managers want to come in and change their tactics, our lads have had an experience of doing that.
Would you say, I'm going by what you're saying there, that the flexibility of the player is the all-important thing, the ability to go from one system perhaps into a different system in the first team, and then be able to adjust in that style?
Absolutely, yeah. So they've had a little bit of a challenge. Say an example, it doesn't really go into the system, but what we'll be looking to do this season now will be changing our marking on set pieces. So players will get a chance of zonal marking, they'll get a chance of man marking. So there'll be just different challenges, and they're kind of getting a sort of a wholesome picture of what it could look like in the first team.
I understand. We do these 2 questions at a time, Kevin, so I'm going to pass you over to Joe.
Right, okay, yeah.
Thank you, mate.
Hi, Kevin. I'm Joe.
Hi, Joe, you all right?
Yeah, good. Nice to meet you. We've seen a few youngsters make the leap to first-team football, such as Romain Esse and Reece Mangura-Williams.
Yeah.
Apart from the obvious technical abilities that they have, what other qualities separate those that make it to those that don't, in your opinion?
I would say consistency level, hard work. It sounds like an obvious one, but hard work, dedication, all those things as well. And they've got to understand the game a little bit as well, which comes with experience and with the manager, with the current manager. His tactical awareness is really good. He needs his players to be tactically aware, he can adapt that. So we try to get that into them as well, making sure they can sort of understand what is getting asked of him in games. But the hard work, the consistency level, the dedication. I mean, Rays would be in at, he'd be in at 8 o'clock in the morning, he'd be doing gym work, and it just gives him that extra little foundation as well. But consistency, I would say, is huge.
You look at the old player like Esse or Esse went to Palace, and of course I think it was under Harris's era. He didn't quite make it, and a few clubs kind of moved him on, didn't they, to various clubs, and he kind of took a while before he found his home. So I guess I know you can't really speak on behalf of Neil Harris at the time, but what would you say were the reasons there? Was it just an adjustment, or the culture wasn't right to the way we played our football? And
I would imagine so. I mean, like I say, it was pre my time here, but football has evolved a lot. I mean, there's the basics that you stand by. You know what I mean? You work hard. There's so many of the basics that you have to do. You still have to do, but it has evolved. And one thing that we've looked at amongst ourselves, since I've been, is that teams used to be 4-4-2. And everyone, the same thing week in, week out. Now there's adjustments in tactics, there's adjustments in styles. People wanted the same type of player all the time. Now you'll have players, what we believe that, do you know what, they might not suit us at this club, but they may go on so you could sell them or get something from them. Another manager might like them, or, we've seen it all before when one manager leaves the club, and then the players been out of it totally. And then a new manager comes in, and he's just a regular starter. So it just managers want different things. At the time, I couldn't give you an answer with Eze on that one, but I would imagine it was about around those sort of lines in terms of our tactical work. I would have thought.
That makes sense. Cheers, Kevin. Micky?
Obviously, to a fan's point of view, we see these young players come in. Alex Mitchell will probably be a prime example where we think that he's definitely got something about him. How hard is it sometimes to try and make sure that the fans understand, or how hard is it for you when a player feels that the fans love him and he feels that he's there, but actually there's so much more to it than just his ability on the pitch? For instance, like, with the one what Joe was saying, that could have been something to do with attitude or style or anything else, what accumulated to him unfortunately not getting a contract. So how difficult it is in your role to develop players, but you're having to develop everything about them, not just what's on the pitch?
Yeah, well, to be honest, we've been very fortunate. The lads that we recruit, that honestly, I would say they're fantastic lads. Pretty much every single one of them I've worked with have been, hardworking, really diligent in doing their job as well. So we try to give them, again, the whole picture. And again, it's kind of a player first approach we have, well, player and people first. So we have to make sure that they're all okay. When they're in our workplace, they're really enjoying that side of it as well. So there's a real thing we've got to look after, and we've got to make sure we take care of these players. Now, get them into the first team. All we can do as the 21s or coming through that system is train them to be training really hard, to be good professionals, to improve on things that they may need improving into. Could be technical work, could be a bit of heading, could be whatever it is, and just keep on giving them individual programs. And then it kind of goes on. They get opportunities sometimes to go and train with the first team. They've got to then take that opportunity. The manager might think, you know what, I really like him. Or you know what, he's not quite ready to be with us yet, and he'll step back down again. And then you've got to manage these situations as well. So they have to give them a sort of a mental awareness that it's tough. Football is a brutal industry. So when you do get that opportunity, you need to take it. The way that Ray's did when he came in and he took that opportunity. The likes of Alex, fantastic lad. But like I said, once they get to that level, then it becomes the manager's decision whether they get into the first team, whether they'll get a regular start. And then over that with a club decision on whether they stay with the club or they don't. So obviously we end up selling Al to Charlton, and he's gone on. Again, it gives us a lot of joy as well. I'll get as much satisfaction with players getting into our first team as the other lads when they go off and they get a career in football. I really like, you look through the teams now in all of the leagues, and you'll see lads that have come through in these last 6-7 years. You see them there, even like George Walker, a fantastic lad. He's gone. I think he signed for Kidderminster recently. You got Abdul's playing at Bournemouth, just got promoted to the National League as well. So there's all of these players. It gives us huge satisfaction that we are giving them a start and they can get a career in football at whatever level that is, and hopefully the way that Eze did, that they'll maybe, if they get released, then they drop down a little bit and then they find their feet. And sometimes the maturation is a little bit different these days now. And it takes them a little bit of time. Maybe they've got to find a bit of love with a football club or a manager. But it does take, the days are gone when someone says, if he's 18, he ain't ready, then he ain't never going to be ready. Them days are gone now. Society's totally changed. So you've got to give them that little bit of chance. You've got to make sure you look after them, and hopefully at some stage they will get into that team and they'll be ready to go and play.
How much easier is it for you now to, obviously, with the way the club has changed with the first team, and it's a word what I don't think Max will probably tell me off again for, is asset. But how easy is it for you to actually say to a youngster when you're meeting them and their family to say you can actually get in? Now the fact that we've sold, obviously, SA to Palace, and obviously Fleming has moved on, where now you're looking at these young players with a realistic chance that in a few years, if they actually take the opportunity in front of them, they could be in the first team. Because Alex Neil's come out on interviews and stuff and said, look, if I think they're ready, I'll bring them in to train with the first team. And that must give a 17, 18-year-old lad huge amounts of pride to suddenly go from a youth setup into training with the first team.
Yeah, and it's fantastic now that we are pushing towards that as well. You know, we've had the lads, we've had, obviously you look at like Danny Mack, Billy Mitchell, they've come in and their pathway has been totally different. You know, Danny went out, I think he had 4 loans before he got that opportunity to come in. And again, he took his chance. Billy, he took his chance at, I think it was Hull away, right wing back. You know what I mean? So they've got to make sure they're ready for it. It is really nice that we are pushing for that at the moment, you know, to make sure. But again, we're still training them the same. We're not training them any differently. We're not teaching them anything differently, but they've got to be ready when they step up for a training session or whatever it is. They have to be ready. And that it's not always clean when you get into the first team. It could be, do you know what? Yeah, it's a perfect scenario. And you say, do you know what? We'll have him on the bench and we'll give him 10 minutes here and we'll give him 15, see how he gets on. Quite often that isn't the case. Quite often you've got players that have got injured and there's a spot and then you get thrown in and then you've got to take. So you always have to be ready, whether that be every single morning in training, you're in on time and you're ready. So if you get called up by the manager, you're gonna show your best version of yourself. That's what we push the whole time. And again, it is that pathway into ideally to be a Millwall player, but a pathway to have a career in football as well is something that we really, really push for as well. But it's good now with obviously with the manager and Steve, etc., trying and the chairman really trying to push for a young group.
No, that's it. No, thanks. Nick would probably tell you about the history of our past with youth and the way that our own grown has won us some great things in the past.
Yeah, I bet as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mick. Yeah, I mean, obviously the club's got a reputation for producing talent. You know that, Kevin. It was interesting. You made a good point earlier on how brutal, ruthless football is as a place of work in many ways. And we just had the retained list, so obviously that implies that some players are let go. That's got to be one of the tougher parts of your job, I would imagine.
It's horrible.
Release the players.
It's horrible. It's a day that we all dread. You know, I can't tell you how much it is. And you go in there and you've got lads, honestly, that you've worked with for a year, maybe 2 years, and they've been with the club maybe from 8, 9 years old. And like the likes of Scott Fitz has known them from that age. So it's difficult for everyone along the way. And then maybe they've got some of them will be released at the end of their scholarship.
Right.
You've got the schoolboy bit, you've got the scholarship bit. With our one, you know, they've been pros, and you think, you know what, now they've got a chance, and it just for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. But no, it's a horrible time. But we give them the care afterwards as well. We give them the care. We look after them. I'm still in contact with a lot of the lads that are no longer with us. Always there and we've got a player care system, so we really do look after them as well. But it doesn't make it any easier. Certainly, I'm talking about it's not easy for us, but for them, it's a lot worse as well. So, but like I say, we're really pleased in recent years that we do. I look through them teams of other clubs now, and there's plenty of our lads that are in there having a career.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You see names that you've recognised in other teams, and it's interesting when you see them going to places and make it. I mean, I was there when we won the under-21 championship a couple of years ago at the Den.
Oh right, okay, yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
It was a great night, and it's fascinating, if that's the right word, probably not the right word, but how few players from that team actually do press on. It's to keep saying the same point. It's a very tough business, Kev, isn't it? I mean, it is. You know, a Coley lifting the trophy. I remember it very well. I thought there's a player that will press on with us, but of course it don't always work the way you think it does it? It goes on to other clubs.
Yeah, exactly. And we're proud that they can go on to other clubs. And I say, ideally, these lads would have come through, but there are levels. You know, you've got your Premiership, your Championship, etc., etc. You do have levels, and hopefully, if these lads do go elsewhere, then they'll start climbing those ladders again. And whether that be getting moved on to another club or playing with a club that gets promoted and it gets them into a championship. So we're really proud that we are doing that. But it's a tough industry. It's the best job in the world, by the way, being a footballer. and me coaching the 21s group, like absolutely love it. I love the development side of it. I love the interaction with it, with the lads. We've got really good staff around me. Obviously, Scott Fitz, we've got Robbo, we've got other ones as well. We've got sports scientists with us. We've got a nice little team. It's a really tight-knit team, and it's a fantastic job. But not everyone is going to reach that level.
No. There's only 11 players, isn't there?
Exactly. Team. Honestly, and again, sometimes one manager might really fancy a player, and then the next one doesn't. So it's just how it works, and that's the way it is. it is all about opinions. So,
is it a collective decision? Just before I pass you on to Joe, is it a collective decision to release a player, or would that be, in that case, your call on, or would it be?
Yeah, it's generally collective.
Right.
It's generally collective between the academy staff. We try and have an alignment through the football club and with the academy as well. So, maybe if the manager's come in and he's not been in long, he might not have too much to say in it, or they've gone and trained with them, and then maybe they're a little bit older and say, you know what, I like him, but we've already got players in that position, so we won't take him. So in certain aspects, there'll be another opinions, but
factors at play.
Yeah. It's generally it's collective decisions. Yes.
I understand. Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to give you to Joe now. Joe?
That's all right, no problem.
Nice one. Cheers, Nick. Kevin, for those fans that don't often watch the under-21s, what would you say?
Come down and watch.
No, exactly. Well, I do quite often, but I know a lot don't.
Yeah.
But what would you say is about the standard of the players coming through, the kind of future pipeline of talent, if you like, and what would you say are the names we should be looking out for the fans that don't get to watch under-21s often?
Yeah, it's difficult to give out names because things change all the time. We've got some good lads coming through now,
Can you describe them? There's a few standouts and a bit about them and their abilities and stuff, maybe?
Yeah, okay. We've got to say, as an example, we've got a lad, Jack Howland, who's got loads of ability.
Really good player.
Really, really talented. Again, but there's so many facets of being a footballer, and we spoke to him, so he needs to work on certain things. He's got programs in the summer, etc. And again, we have an individual program for each player. So each player will have call it an IDP. So we have that every day. So they do like maybe 10 minutes after training. We'll go through team meetings, but then a lot of our first team would be, I would imagine, be pretty generic sort of team meetings and tactics and what they could do. Our ones, we do the same, but that's slightly shortened. We don't go into the tactical sides as much as maybe what the first team do. But what we do is a lot of individual work. So as you see, as I'm sure you've seen it's a society thing really, where people, probably younger lads now, probably don't solve problems so much, and they don't really they find it a little bit harder to sort of sort things out themselves. So now what we try and do is make them accountable. So if we're showing them the meetings, we don't say, right, you should be doing that, you shouldn't be doing that. What we'll say, what do you think on that situation? So they've got to articulate what they think they should have done and where they may have made a mistake. And sometimes that's slightly subjective.
Do you do that by watching back sort of videos, the sort of games?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. We have Kieran videos all our games, and they clip it, individual clips, but me and Robbo will go through it.
That's good.
And quite often Robbo will do a centre-half. He'll be looking after a centre-half and making sure their body position's right. But we don't just say to them, like, you should be doing that. Like old school.
Yeah. Tell them.
Like, I know it was brutal. Like,
yeah.
You know
so Jack Howland, for example, what type of player is he? Because I've seen him sort of play through the middle. I've sort of seen him play on the wings. Is he a both-footed player as well, I think?
No, he's left-footed. He can play across any. Yeah,
unlike many lefties, he can use his right as well, can't he?
Yeah, he can use that as well. Yeah, so he's left-footed. He's got a nice balance, and he can play anywhere across that sort of front line, really.
Okay, yeah. What we often find is like for example, Race, for example, when he was playing for the under-21s or under-23s, like he was playing this kind of central midfield role, and you kind of feel like that's where he kind of wants to play, or that's how he's learned his his craft, if you like. But then, of course, when you get into the first team, you kind of have to sort of play when the manager plays you a little bit. And we've got this
absolutely.
Thing where it's a bit like square pegs and round holes?
Yeah,
a little bit, and players are kind of being asked to play a little bit out of positions. But of course, when you're a youngster, you're not going to turn it down, are you? You're going to play wherever the manager wants you to play. But does that kind of hinder their development a little bit? Because, personally, I would love to sort of play Race in the number 10 or in a centre midfield position. But understandably, there's players queuing up ahead of him who might, on merit, whether it be experience, would be slightly ahead of him at the moment. And does that kind of hinder their development slightly, would you say?
No, I don't think. I think once they're in the team, they've just got to. They've just got to get on with it. If they get in a position, and I spoke about early on, Billy Mitchell made his debut, I think, at right wing back. Now he's the top championship centre midfielder. And that would have been always his preferred position. So Ray's now, and it'll be up to where the manager sees him, because Ray's has got an ability to play across that front line anywhere, and he can play central midfield.
Yeah.
He hasn't. I don't think he's done that yet for the first team, but maybe. Well, I don't know. That'll be down to the manager. The manager might see him. Do you know what? I really like him out there.
Yeah,
and he can equally he can do any of those positions. So
yeah.
I certainly don't think if you're in a it's a good championship side we have. Millwall's got some good players in there as well, and the manager's doing a fantastic job with them. So if Ray's is getting in the championship side, whatever position he's doing okay. If he's getting in front of other players, he's doing all right.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, like you're saying, with Billy Mitchell's a prime example, whereas you come in at a certain position, slightly out of position. Once you kind of earn your stripes, so to speak, you then find that way into the position you want to play. So, for example, you say with Race, he's playing on the left, he's playing on the right, he's playing a little bit in the 10, but maybe give it another season or so, he might get to play in that more central position where perhaps he might feel most comfortable playing.
Yeah, he might, like I say, he might well do, and hopefully he'll flourish in any of those positions. And again, we spoke about earlier on what will push the manager to play someone, and it will be their attitude, it will be how they carry themselves. And Ray's is a perfect example. Danny Mack is a perfect example of that. Billy Mitchell is an absolute perfect example of all of those things. So you feel like you could put any of those players in a different position and they'd be fine. There'd be no question in it. They just go and get on with it, and I think that's what we try to establish with these lads and get it into them. Just make sure you're ready all the time and make sure your attitude is spot on and everything about how you carry yourself around the club. Again, there's a lot of that type of work goes onto it. It goes into it as well.
That's brilliant. Yeah, cheers, Kevin. Nice one.
That's all right.
Question for you is obviously with fans, we see players like Reece and others come on and they get into the first team and they're going. And according to us lot, we're like, well, they should be playing every game now. They've really doing change. But you've obviously, a lot of the fans take to social media and moan and everything else. But actually, with a player like Reece, you can't put him in too fast because then potentially they're going to have a burnout. And it's going to affect their overall performance with a lot of players. So we, as a fan base, should bear with them, because if they're not playing every game, it's not because they're not good enough to play every game or the manager doesn't like them. It's more about their development plan that you just don't want it to affect them a little bit further down the line.
Yeah, I think obviously raises a bit of a situation because he got injured anyway. So a lot of the time he hasn't played, he's been out injured. But once they go into that first team bracket, they kind of come out of my remit anyway, out of the academy remit anyway. So it's down to the manager. But we'll have good discussions with the manager. But if they're going to be playing there or not playing, the manager will have a reason why they're not playing there. If it's a lad that we think, he's a bit risky about getting injured, etc. But the manager is going to try and pick his best team. That's the bottom line of it. And if that lad should be in it, he'll be in it. But if someone's not playing, if someone's on the bench or out of the squad, there's a valid reason for that. There's not as simple as that. The manager has a reason why someone's not playing. And
I get it.
Just only pick 11 players, and that's how it is. And whether half of the Millwall fans think he should be playing and half don't think, the manager is the one that makes that decision. And the managers we've had at the club have all been very good, and that's what their job is.
It's like what you said before, and football's about opinions. My final question is obviously there's a lot of talk nowadays with players aren't necessarily like before. If you were a winger, you'd always be a winger. If you're a defender, you're always defender. It seems now as if it's more about if they can play football, they can be coached into different positions now. Do you find that's fairly true? Because there's a lot of defenders what are moving into keeping, rather going into goalkeeping, larger guys and good with their feet. That's all changed. Do you find that that's easier now to suddenly come across a winger who's actually maybe better at a forward or better in a central position rather than their chosen position?
I do. Honestly, I do. I think you can get so just as an example, you say you've got a left winger, and it's quite easy now, and I think the players are much more acceptable to it as well. You could drop him into a left back role. You could drop him into maybe left side of a back three, and the players will accept that. And we be doing that to give them a bit of variety in their play, to make them a little bit adaptable in how they play as well. So I think that's a major bonus in, like, say, modern football. It is different. Before it was like pretty much 4-4-2 straight lines, where now it is different and people do rotate and you've seen it over the years with different clubs doing it, and managers now want different things, and certain football clubs will have a style that they are going to stick with, and they want a certain type of player. So I think it's a really good thing that our lads get the opportunity to play in different positions, and they're very accepting of that as well. But don't get me wrong, there'll be players you think, you know what, you are a centre half, and that's where we think you're going to have your best opportunity of playing, so you'll play there. But the other ones will say, okay, listen, in this game, we'll have a little challenge. If it doesn't work, that's what the 21s is here for. Sometimes, if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world if we don't pick up the 3 points. We always want to do it, but it's not always going to be the case. So we will try things out with players.
No, that's good. Thanks very much.
No
Nick?
problem, that's all right.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I mean, you kind of just answered the question I was going to ask about the difference between under 21 management and the senior squad, winning and losing. Is it are you judged on your winning record, or are you judged on the players you're producing? I'd imagine it's the second one, really.
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah. It's good to have both.
Yeah.
If I could give you an analogy of the difference between first team football and just one little bit. So, say for instance, we've got a centre half who isn't a great marker on set pieces.
Yeah.
If it's with the first team and it's been established, you know what, he's not a great marker on set pieces. Do you know what? You won't have him marking. You'll have him in a space. You'll have him somewhere else, and you'll keep him out of the way. Whether it be a centre forward or whoever it is, with us, we'll say, right, now we develop you. You need to become a better marker. So whether that costs us the game, if he becomes a better marker, and he goes into the first team and he's heading things out from set pieces because we've trained him up to do that, and we've lost some games, that's a huge success for us. But that would say is a low level analogy of the difference between the winning and mentality. That we would, like I say, if for development, we're willing to lose games.
I understand. I'm just looking at your playing career back in the 80s, I believe. You must have played under some hard.
Right, keep it quiet.
I mean, management style is where I'm going with this, and you've mentioned a lot that the game has changed, and I think we'll get that. Anyone of a certain age sees it, I mean, when it comes to players, I mean, you must have had dressing rooms where the manager is, I don't know whether the hairdryer treatment or the throwing the teacups around, whatever you want to call it, but do managers still do that? Is that something that is a real thing now, or are you more arm around the shoulder as a kind of profession? I'm driving that, not you personally.
Yeah, but I think it was, say, I don't think there was as much shouting and all that everyone goes on about years ago. I really don't.
That's interesting.
Okay. I don't think I can't. I'm pretty much sure I got shouted at a few times, and I'm not sure if it really helped me that much. When I went out on the second half, whether it made me that much better.
Right.
I don't think it really did. So now it's certainly, you can maybe raise your voice a little bit or show something in it, but it's more of, again, a bit of an education, and you're at half time or after the game or whatever it is, you're making sure that the player is learning and they're developing, and you're giving them some knowledge of stuff, really.
I understand. Yeah.
Basically, if you're shouting and screaming sometimes, it's hard not to sometimes. But you know what I mean, let's be honest, it is hard not to sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's probably just, if I were to do it, it's probably just for myself.
Yeah.
It's just releasing stuff, and I don't think anyone's really getting anything out of that if you come in. Do you know what I mean? So, but I don't think it was as bad as it certainly wasn't as bad as what people make out years ago. There was
that's really interesting.
There was some good managers and some very, very good coaches around years ago as well. Yeah.
There's no podcast career in that kind of side of things, Kevin. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.
That's all right.
Kate, last couple of questions from myself. Just interesting to find out your thoughts on the best young talent that you've ever coached, and why pick that person out.
Talented wise, you've got obviously Romain, who's just gone to Palace. He's got to be in there as well. But I suppose when you talk about talent, it can come in different ways, can't it? It can come in different forms. It can come in athleticism. It can come in technical. It can come in now. Romain technically fantastic, but it's going to be really hard for me to sort of say on this one, But the lads, like I say, the two lads that are in the side, Danny Mack and Billy Mitchell, those lads are just modelled. They've been model pros, and to work with, if you're a first team manager, you want to work with those type of lads. Trustworthy, reliable, and you know what? Very, very good players. So I'll probably go with those lads that I'm speaking with at the moment. Yeah.
Nice one. And just to end it off, just finally, if a young lad from South London, dreams of playing for Millwall one day, what's the one bit of advice that you would give him?
Give it everything. Whatever you do, don't come off the train. Sorry, don't come off the training pitch, or don't come off after a match thinking, "Oh, I wish I could have done a little bit more there." So every day you're out training or whatever it is, make sure you give it every single thing you've got. That's what I would say is the biggest bit of advice.
Achtung, Millwall.
There we go, dear listeners. I hope you enjoyed this edition. As I say, it was slightly put together on the hoof. We did the interview yesterday, which was arranged, not short notice, but I wasn't really planning for it. And it came out of nowhere. So I thought I'd just throw a few comments together on my take on the Mill news of the summertime so far. Obviously not an awful lot to tag on to. I just want to mention the Lions Food Hub. And say a big thank you to Nolu Clothing. No One Likes Us .co.uk, I think it is. They're doing our T-shirt, the Achtung Mill T-shirt, and every so often Martin of Nolu Clothing will contact me and say we've sold X amount of T-shirts and he's just made another donation to the Lions Food Hub, 72 quid. So if you do, we run the advert before every game, every show anyway, but it does do good. We have made a donation, I think it was over the season, including the revenues from the show, plus the T-shirts. I think it's about 1,200 quid that we've donated to the Lions Food Hub since last August to now. I want to say a huge thank you to Martin for allowing that initiative. It's really appreciated. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's bought a T-shirt. I'll stick a link in the show notes, and there's always the advert at the start of the show. And I want to close by saying a big thank you to you, dear listeners, for your support. It is much appreciated. Every season comes round and I think, shall I carry on doing this show? But we get a lot of listeners and we generate money for some good causes. And so far, as long as I enjoy it, as long as I get something out of it myself, it may or may not include video content. I'm not sure my face is good for video after all these years. We'll see on that front. But for now, from the audio only Millwall podcast, Achtung Millwall podcast, from me, Nick Hart, big thank you for tuning in. Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Achtung, Millwall.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.